to another episode of the Sartorial Geek Podcast. This episode is a live recording from Geek Girl Con in Seattle. So thank you so much to Geek Girl Con for letting us have the space to do a live podcast there. Thanks to my host, Mallory of Mallory of Sunshine. I hope you guys enjoy the episode. This week's episode is sponsored by Logan Arch. Logan Arch is the place to go if you're looking for geeky accessories that also feel a little bit nostalgic. So Pokemon fans, there's definitely something for you. They have pins, apparel, bags, stickers, office goods, basically everything you could want. And it's all well-designed and nerdy and reminds you of your childhood faves, which is something I absolutely love. To start shopping, you can head to loganarchchicago.com or follow them online at loganarchchicago.
Hi, welcome to the Sartorial Geek Podcast live from Geek Girl Con. Thank you all so much for being here. This is actually maybe the most people we've ever had on a podcast recording, which is rad. There are millions here for those listening at home. I am here with Mallory from Mallory of Sunshine, and also
What You Readin'.
What You Readin'. And so we're doing a podcast series about like writing and authors and books for NaNoWriMo, or National Novel Writing Month, which is November. So I thought it'd be fun to have Mallory talk about books. You specifically are into young adult, and I mean, I guess young adult is like the broad version of things. But for people who listen to our podcast a lot, I rarely read, so I have to interview people who read a lot more than I do, because our co-editor, Liz, is definitely the literary one of the two of us. So this will be me asking a lot of questions, which is super fun. But I guess the first question is, has reading always been like a big part of your life, or is that a new thing, or does it go in and out? Like, what's your relationship to reading like?
That's a great question. So it has always been a part of my life. I think we were talking a little bit earlier. We're both homeschooled. So books were kind of our friends a lot growing up. We had friends too. We did have friends, but books were our really good friends
for a while.
Yeah, that's fair. So I like reading books, like multiple books a week kind of thing. And then, you get older and maybe you do more school or you do more work or a combination of the two. And I definitely read less during those years. And now I have a long commute. And so I was reading less when I started that long commute. But thanks to audiobooks, I'm finally starting to read again. I'm also in a weird space right now. I talked about this in my last episode. I have 2 whole episodes of my podcast out, everyone, which is so fancy.
Listen, it's hard. I totally get it.
It's so hard. I thought, oh, let me do a podcast because that's so much easier than video. Nope, you don't have a visual to edit with, and I read my own lips when I edit video. It's anyway. So yeah, it's gotten harder for me. But but so I've been reading more because of that. But also my brain's just been really full, so I've been reading a little less than I have usually. So I guess that is a very long way to answer your question about my relationships to books. I love books. I wish I made more time for it.
I was going to ask about audiobooks, though, because that's sort of, I live in New York, so I used to do subway commuting, which is very different than driving commuting. So I used to read a lot because there's not much else to do. And now I work and live in the same place. So finding time to read is like, it feels sometimes like choosing not to do anything else, which is the wrong way to think about it. But audiobooks have been great for me too. But I know some people have like weird feelings about them, or it's like a different thing, so it is harder to get into sometimes.
Yeah, it's a different relationship with the book, which sounds weird to say, but like there's something about holding a book in your hands where you're like, this is my friend, right? That you can like hold but it does allow you to multitask, which is nice.
Yeah.
And it's easier than watching a television show.
Yeah. Is Audible like your go-to for audiobooks, or?
Yeah, they got me. I'm on the subscription, so it just makes it too easy, and I have too many credits.
Yeah, I've heard, actually, Raman told me a lot of libraries have like that
Overdrive, is that still a thing? Or one library? Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So that's cool. But I I don't need that extra resource yet.
But maybe one day you will.
Yeah, totally. And you actually are the person who introduced me to book culture, because I don't think I knew, like when I was a kid, I think I would just like go to the library and pick something, but I didn't talk to other people about the books I read. I would just like read a series that I knew about. And then I don't read a lot now, so I didn't realize the way that I understand like TV communities or comics communities or like movie fandoms. There's a book fandom too, like a lot of them.
Totally.
And a lot happens, and that's like a world I did not know existed before.
Totally. Yeah, like BookTube and Bookstagram, I think we were talking about earlier today.
Yeah.
Yeah. BookTube, and it's interesting because, I mean, you know, communities form all over the place around all kinds of things. And I think, you know, YouTube just used to be a place where people would go to talk about their lives. And then it sort of started, these niches started forming. And I don't know how long ago I became aware of BookTube. I want to say it was only like 5 or 6 years, maybe.
Was it around before that?
I don't know.
Okay.
I'm not entirely sure, to be honest.
That's cool.
I know book conventions were, you know, but even like BookCon or like having people who weren't in the industry of like publishing or books in that way, I wasn't aware of like people like me going to book conventions before.
Because they
a
used
handful
to be
of years
like
ago.
Industry, like trade shows where like
Totally.
you had to prove that you belonged there. Basically, it wasn't really for fans.
No. And like now it's changing,
Yeah.
right? And it definitely is. Yeah. So it's great. I think the one thing, and we'll probably talk more about this later, but the one thing about BookTube specifically that I just think about a lot is how one-sided it feels. Like there isn't a lot of representation in BookTube, or you'll see, and for that matter in Bookstagram too, but you'll see what happens with a lot of minority groups where they're there, but nobody's talking about them or sharing their stuff. So that is sort of where the podcast, and my BookTube channel stem from, was I decided the niche I needed to be in was the minority niche of like queer literature, especially in the young adult sphere, because just not a lot of people were talking about it, or all the straight people were talking about it. And I was like, okay, well, that's great. You can definitely talk about it and like but also there needs to be more of the community talking about the representation for the community, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and also, I mean, I think this happens a lot, but so I've looked at Bookstagram a little more than, because I am on Instagram way more than YouTube, and I don't want to say it all looks the same, but you can look at 50 different accounts and like maybe be able to tell them apart. And so that, I mean, you know, that's not necessarily a bad thing, but it's also not necessarily a great thing either.
Yeah.
It becomes like,
hard.
yeah, I feel like it becomes a little like uniform, or a little like everyone's sort of doing the same thing.
Totally. And how much of that is just us feeding the algorithm, right?
Yeah,
but that's
totally.
like a whole another conversation too, which is challenging.
Yeah. This question is purely selfish because I want to know the answer. But if someone like loves reading and is just now learning what like that BookTube and Bookstagram exist, how do you even start navigating that? Like, what do you do to find them? Or like, where do you go?
Well, it's interesting because for the most part, at least I would say the prevalent accounts that lots of people know about are a pretty tight-knit community. So they're always sharing each other, which is kind of cool. And in that way, I think BookTube is it's not like people are not welcoming. They're welcoming. It's just finding them is tricky sometimes. Reviews is how I found BookTube in the first place. I was like, I'm interested in this book. I want to know if someone's talking about it on YouTube, because I do that for makeup. I'm like, if I want to know about makeup, I just go to YouTube and I watch a video about makeup. Yeah. So I thought, I'll do the same thing with books. And then I found some accounts that I was like, I think I'm going to subscribe to these accounts because they talk about books that I want to, hear about. So yeah, I would say just maybe if there's a book you're interested in or an author you're interested in, just do a search. I mean, it sounds really basic, but just do a search and see what comes up. Especially on YouTube, you'd probably find something, and then you might find, and then YouTube's pretty good about like showing you related accounts, which Instagram is too. But yeah,
that is true. If you find one and then
hit follow, it's like a rabbit hole.
Like, here's 5,000 more. Or also,
Totally.
I forgot about this, but I have recently started working with authors to do book collabs, and so I look at their accounts, and so like they'll be tagged in things that like reviewers or creators are doing. So I guess you can like kind of reverse, like go backwards that way.
Yeah, totally.
Which is cool. So do you feel like the niche of, like, we've been talking about how you like felt like there was something missing in representation of different book, like different parts of book culture. Do you feel like the niches are growing? Like there's more happening? Like there are more, like, for example, there's more queer literature happening, or just there's like people are talking about it more?
I think both.
Cool.
And I think that's, I'm sorry, my voice is doing weird things. So like
It's
fun
the
for
end
editing later.
On day, so that's just how it goes.
Yep. I think it is both. I think that's just kind of, I mean, a product of the world in some ways. And we were talking earlier too about hashtag own voices, which is something that I learned about probably only a few years back. But
I mean, I learned about this today, so
okay.
please explain.
Yeah.
more.
So own voices is sort of a niche of BookTube and Bookstagram where the whole point is so I'm not explaining this very well already. This is great. Yep. End of day 2. Minorities, so like in my case, I look for a lot of queer authors and literature, are writing about they're writing their own representation. So that's cool because it's not somebody, like, yes, everyone's experiences in the world are valid, but someone who is queer writing about queer experiences just feels like something that's going to be more authentic for me to experience or read, or like that perspective I will care about more than if it is a like cis straight person talking about those sorts of things. So yeah, own voices is just like when the minority is talking and writing about themselves. So like actually C.B. Lee is an example of that, right? Because she is Asian and her main character in her first book is Asian. Britta is also another, with Ship It. So she's writing about queer representation and is queer. So
is that like, what is that? Is it like a hashtag or is it a...
Yeah,
okay.
it's a hashtag.
Like that's kind of how you can
find it.
Search it. Okay, cool.
Totally. Yeah. So when I used to do a video before I switched over to my podcast, but for the last 4 years, I've done a like most anticipated LGBTQIA books for the year. And I make it a point to try to call out when there is own voices. I like try to seek it out. And obviously not everybody like identifies online or is out or whatever, but I think it's just important and good to know, because hearing those perspectives from the people who their lives are that is just good.
Yeah. And I feel like I've seen a lot of lists of like if you're looking for a book or a story that falls in a certain niche, whatever that is, I've seen a lot more lists going around. I mean, I'm sure the lists aren't new. I'm just seeing them, but like there are lists of comics with certain types of stories or books, young adult. So I feel like probably Googling that too, you would find like everyone's own list of, if you like this book or looking for this kind of thing, which is awesome.
Don't get me wrong. I mean, I think any representation when it doesn't exist at all is great, but I also think it's even better coming from.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For
I
sure.
actually had never heard of that before today. So that is,
I was really
cool.
excited when I learned about it too. So it's awesome.
Another thing that I think is what I see the most in book culture that I think is cool is like when there are, NaNoWriMo is one, when there are like challenges or there are, I don't even know what the other word, but challenges, like everyone doing the same thing together. It's not always like you have to accomplish something, but there are like reading ones or writing ones. Is it just kind of like follow people who do that type of thing and you'll just see them pop up, or are there like other ways to find out what's happening? Because the thing that's hard sometimes is you find it when it's already in the middle, and then that's like kind of annoying.
Yep. So readathons are typically what they're called.
The word I was looking for.
It's like long and confusing. I can't remember her actual real name, but Little Book Owl is her name on Instagram and YouTube. She actually compiles a giant list of all the book or like readathon she knows about for the whole year and updates it every year. So that's a great resource. And then if you, doing a search on YouTube is probably easiest because hashtags on Instagram for that long can be tricky on Instagram. One's coming up in December. Maureen Keevy on YouTube hosts it. It's a Harry Potter read-a-watch-along-a-thon. So you read the books and you watch the movies, and she has different hosts each year who come on and talk about each book. So that's one of my favorites.
That's cool.
I still haven't read all of Harry Potter.
Nuh-uh.
Yeah, that's a fun fact for the world to know about.
This is not a judging phase. What parts have you read? Like, what did you?
So I stopped I took a break after the 5th book.
That's literally everyone.
Yep. So I'm like, there. I'm there. That's where I'm at.
The 5th book really ends a lot.
Because that's one with the Triwizard Tournament, right?
No, that's 4.
Okay, so maybe it's 4. I can't remember 5.
5 is like
it got to be a lot. I knew what was coming. I knew what was going to happen, but I binged them, and I think I binged myself out. So I'm taking a break.
Cool. Well, I'm excited that you can read 6 and 7 sometime. If
totally
you
for the first time ever.
Yeah, I'm kind of jealous. That's awesome.
That's what everyone says.
Yeah.
I think it's nice. Yeah. So maybe for the read-a-watch-along-a-thon, which is way more fun to say than read-a-thon by itself. It's a read-a-watch-along-a-thon.
And then Harry Potter is the perfect lead into YA is your favorite, right? Like that's like your.
Oh. Well, I think so. Yeah, I really like historical fiction too.
Cool.
And there's a lot of good, and I am having the biggest brain fart, so I'm not going to remember anybody's names, but one of my favorite books of all time is called All the Light We Cannot See, and it's actually an adult fiction book, and it's historical fiction set in Paris during World War II about a blind girl who lives through the war with her dad, and it's amazing. It's one of my favorite books of all time. I really like young adult, and I think maybe I realized this during my other panel this morning, that maybe part of it is because I didn't have, or I didn't know, maybe it existed, but I don't think it did in the same way. I didn't have the representation when I was growing up and reading young adult books that now exists. And so I think I'm reading it for my past self a little bit. But also it's just really fun. It's really fun.
And it is, I feel like sometimes, I don't know, I feel like sometimes YA gets you're reading kids books.
Yeah,
but
it's not.
If you're reading for entertainment and to take a break, it's so nice to read something that's fun.
Totally.
And light sometimes. They're not all like that, but.
No. Some of them deal with really, really deep,
some are
stuff.
heavy also, but
yeah. Mm-hmm. There's also a genre which I sort of recently learned about, maybe in the past year, called New Adult, which is emerging as a genre, sort of in between adult fiction and young adult fiction. For example, one book that I thought was young adult that I read this year, which is my favorite ever, called Red, White, and Royal Blue by Casey McQuiston. It's so good. If you're a nerd, you will love it. Also, if you like queer fiction, you will love it. But as I was reading it, I realized it was not young adult and one of the key indicators is with more intimate scenes, for example. In young adult, they usually fade to black. In new adult, they do not. They don't go into crazy detail, but yeah, I was okay, this is new adult. Yeah, for sure. So that's kind of a fun in-between genre that is out there too.
I also had never heard of that. That's awesome.
There's a lot of book stuff in the world.
Oh my gosh.
There's a lot of stuff in the world, but there's
It's also being a nerd, there's so much content. And so it's trying to find the balance of knowing about everything and finding the things you like. Well, also you could read or watch or experience things forever, every second of forever. And books is oh my God, the biggest.
Yeah.
The biggest.
All of history.
Group. Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, totally.
Yep. That's rough.
You've mentioned some books that you love already, but do you have recommendations or things you're very excited that are coming out soon?
I should have prepared for that question.
Sorry.
I did not. No.
That's what happens when you don't plan out questions ahead of time.
Okay. Definitely Mackenzie Lee's new book that is coming out isn't that coming out soon-ish or not?
Definitely something I should know. I know
I feel like it is.
Third
Yep.
of the Montague siblings.
Montague siblings, yep.
books.
And I don't remember the kid's name because he didn't have a real name until recently. But
It's on the shirt I just
yep,
made.
so it sure is. Yeah. So anyway, Mackenzie Lee's new book. I'm really excited about that.
To give us credit, it's not out yet. So
No, it's not.
It's
It's
okay
not.
that we don't know all the details.
Yeah, we'll give ourselves that break. But A Gentleman's Guide to Vice and Virtue, and it's the Montague siblings trilogy now. So fun. Like, they're historical, they're queer, they're fun, and they all have completely unexpected things that happen in them.
Yeah.
Like, I could have never seen them coming. So probably that. Yeah.
What are some of your other favorites, or if someone has not really gone back to YA as an adult, what are some books that you would recommend? YA is fun for adults to read too. I know.
Yeah.
Gentleman's Guide counts for that also.
Definitely
but-
counts for that. I mean, Ship It by Britta, one of my favorite books of
Yeah.
all time.
Also talking about reading and seriously blushing because you didn't realize what you were getting into. I picked up the book on vacation with my family, sitting next to my 5-year-old niece, and I got to the first 10 pages, and I was like, oh no, I'm gonna read this later.
Okay, so do the same thing with Red, White, and Royal Blue.
Okay,
If you
great,
read that one. Yeah, yes, it's a little blushy.
Yeah, good.
But it's so good. So pretty much anything nerd related. Aristotle and Dante discover the secrets of the universe. I can't remember all of the authors' names are falling out of my head, but that
okay.
one is older and amazing. Anything John Green. I mean, he's everywhere now, but he wasn't at one point, and he's always been amazing. Becky Albatali is also great. Maureen Johnson is a name. She writes fun books. She collaborates with John Green a lot. I think it's Maureen Johnson. Yeah. So there's
can't help you. I'm
so much
sorry.
out there.
I literally cannot help at all.
And I'm just looking around. Hello, anyone? There are these real people? Do we think they exist? Yeah, they do.
The good thing about having show notes is we will write an actual list with links to them and the correct names for everything.
I will write a list one day.
Yeah. So we'll have it. We'll have it on the website. We'll make a list for everyone. That's great.
Definitely. Yeah, but
What else do I want to ask
I
you?
get stuck on favorite books. So then I'm just this is my favorite book, and everyone needs to read it. And
That's
that's what happened with Britta's book.
Yeah.
Yeah. Also, I mean, the people who you have collaborated with so far are some of my favorites, like C.B. Lee.
That's
I love
not an accident.
all
You're
of her
like,
books.
hi, please meet this author. And then
Yeah,
do
please
stuff with them.
do that. So I love that. And Ash's books, amazing and fun, and all just nerdy and geeky, which is another thing that is starting to show up more in media in general, which is really cool because going to conventions is becoming normal.
Yeah, and something really cool that
that's cool.
I've seen. So actually, at Emerald City this past year, Mallory introduces me to every author I know. So we ended up going to dinner with a bunch of authors, and it was really cool because I kind of learned for the first time how many books are being written that are a merge of two genres or an overlap of two things that I've never heard of before. I think someone was talking about writing queer romance that always involves food or a bakery, and I was like, oh, word, those are 3 things that I love. That's really cool.
Yeah.
So there is kind of I don't know if it's the way publishing is going or that people can self-publish or just that
Or
there's
Julia
an
Ember,
audience.
because she writes hers were Little Mermaid inspired, and then there was mythical romance throughout the ages.
Yeah,
All
and
cool.
the most recent book club that I've done, or second most recent, is with Sarah McLean, who writes romance novels, but they're also historic, but they're also feminist. And so those 3 things I've never heard of going together. So I think there is kind of a magical overlap of pick 2 or 3 things that you love, and there's probably a book you never thought would have existed because it's so specific. But it's kind of amazing that they're being written and published. It's I guess it's a lot of fanfic you can do that with, but now it's books that are published and you don't have to scour the depths of the internet, which is sometimes hard to do to find those things. Yeah, totally.
Yeah, no, for sure. That's awesome
Cool.
and true.
I don't think I have any more podcast questions for you.
Okay.
I guess tell everyone what your podcast is and like what you're going to be doing with that as you grow it.
Totally. Well, I've been on YouTube for a minute. I've been at least 10 years. I can't remember exactly how long. I haven't made a video in a year. Been on a short break.
That's the great thing about the internet. You can just take breaks when you need to, which is great.
But yeah, so decided that books and makeup were my niche. And then life kind of happened. I needed a break. But I missed talking about books so much because it was so fun. And I really feel passionately that there aren't enough queer people talking about queer books on the internet in like specifically BookTube or like Bookstagram. So I thought, well, kind of like I was saying earlier, a podcast is going to be not easier because it's a lot of work. And I knew that because video is a lot of work, but like
it
more
seems like you're cutting
portable.
The work out though.
It does seem like it, but you're really not. Yeah. And then it's more, I mean, there is the portability factor. Like we're sitting in a conference room right now and we're recording this podcast, right? So because I tried to record an interview with CB Lee at Geek Girl Con last year, and then it was just terrible. The like audio was terrible and the video was terrible.
More technology.
It was just like so much. Yeah. So I thought, well, maybe if this is a podcast, I could take that with me or do it over the distance like you do, right? So that's kind of where the podcast came from. And I've only done 2 episodes, and I thought, well, okay, my goal is to talk about books, like review them, do my list things that I do, and then interview cool people who do things with books, authors, people who read books like you, people who cosplay books like people Shakespeare and me.
One book a year, which is actually I bought Ship It last year, and I told
you did.
Britta, please don't be sad if I like. It's not that I don't like it. I just don't read very much, and so she signed it like, I hope this is the one book you read next year, and then it was, which was great.
Yeah.
But yeah, there are at least a couple of us who read 1 book a year.
I know. But you read graphic novels, which is what I want to have you on my podcast to talk about, because those count.
Yeah.
That's
They're
reading.
definitely faster to read, which is wonderful. That is key in my list of requirements for reading right now.
That's amazing.
Awesome. So where are the places to find you and your things?
Probably the easiest is just Instagram because it links out to everything, which I think I wrote here at Mallory. Malloryofsunshine.com is my website, which also has all the kind of offshoots into all the things that I have on the internet. Yeah. And the podcast is called What Ya Reading because it's like the YA and yeah. Anyway, it sounds better when you see it than when you say it. So there you go.
That's awesome. Thank you so much. Every time I talk about books, I feel motivated to read more books. So maybe that'll be my 2020 goal.
I've read like 2 books this year, and that's rough. So this is weird for me. Yeah. So just feel you're in good company is all.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Outro music.
Oh, yeah. So
do.
Thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, you can head to our archives to hear more or hit subscribe to hear what's coming up next. If you want to go a step above and beyond, you can leave us a review on iTunes, which helps other nerdy people find us. Or you can go to patreon.com/sartorialgeek to help keep the podcast going and check out the cool rewards that we have over there. Have a great week and stay nerdy.